this is Pick, and welcome to this Better Questing theme creation tutorial. Better Questing allows you to change the appearance of many features of its GUI for a customized experience for your modpack. To get started, go into the config folder in your modpack directory and then the Better Questing subfolder. Then go into Resources and make a new folder named after your modpack. From there, you'll want to make a folder for textures and GUI, and here's where all the image files are going to be held. Now, you'll also need a new JSON file named BQ_themes. If you don't want to start from scratch, you can go into the mod jar for the Better Questing Standard expansion, go into Assets and BQ Standard, and there will be a pre-made BQ_themes JSON file in here. Just be aware that you will need to change stuff to make it work regardless, so follow along anyway. Now, from here, we're going to look at what each part does. Now, at the beginning of this is just, before this brace is just one open square bracket. So make sure you have that there. Now, from here, the theme ID is simply what Better Questing recognizes as the ID of the theme. Make sure this is whatever you named that folder as earlier, and then whatever you're calling this theme. Then next is the theme name. This is just whatever you're going to name your theme in-game. It's what you will be selecting when you see it in-game. The parent is basically meaningless for this tutorial, and now we have the textures, which is the most important part. So, Better Questing panel_main is the main background. You'll see this gray background with this green striped border. That's what the panel_main is in charge of. Now, as for the texture type, each texture type, there are two major ones. The texture_sliced, which is a slice texture. It is a standard 9-slice texture that has 4 separate edges, 4 separate corners, and 1 center that will loop on the inside, as opposed to a standard texture, which I'll get to later. Now, for the atlas, this is basically the directory for your image file, so you're going to want to put whatever you made your modpack name folder, then textures, and then GUI, and then whenever you're calling this image file. So you're going to want to go into the textures GUI and make a new 256 by 256 image file. It doesn't have to be 256 by 256, but it does have to be a power of 2 higher than that, so 512, 1024, 2048, etc. If you make it bigger, it will scale it differently though, so be wary of that. For the simplicity's sake, go with the 256 by 256. That is plenty of space to work with. You can set things as long as you're not drastically oversizing it. You shouldn't have any issues. So if we look at this, the first thing you'll see now is the bounds. The bounds determine the left border of the texture grid, the top border of the texture grid, the width of the texture, and the height of the texture. These each determine a different part of the GUI. So in this case, I am 96 pixels from the left and 16 pixels from the top for this part of the texture. Now, the next thing you'll look at is the padding. The padding determines the border that you're going to be getting. So in this example, if you look at the table, which is 6 pixels tall and 6 pixels wide here, and it continues all the way around, this determines what the border is, and then there's a 16 by 16 area on the inside. Well, this is just whatever's remaining. It can be whatever size you want. I just go at 16 by 16 because it's simple to use. So now what you're going to want to do is, for setting the padding, you'd set each boundary as you did before, and this is how big you want each to be. I typically go with a square, but squaring is easy. And then the slice mode determines how it separates the slicing. So for one, it will slice it and then tile it to fit. This is what most of the things in the mod use, so you generally want to go with that. So the next thing is the auxiliary frame. This is this purple and green background. This is what the main questing background looks like. You can see here. So for this, you can just set your whatever you're going to tile it to. This is tiled as sliced as 2, which means it will slice and stretch the edges and the center. So it basically stretches the inside to make one big texture, as opposed to slicing it and just looping it on the inside. And then here again we have left boundary top with height. It's the same thing as before. For the scroll, this is just what the scroll bar is going to look like. This is the background to the scroll bar, and then these are whether the scroll bar is not touched or hovered on, so you're scrolling, you know, stuff like that. And then for the buttons, these are the button textures, so these, in this case, these purple buttons, each determines a different aspect of what the buttons do. it does what the button looks like when it just exists, what the button looks like when it's normal, just when you're clicked on it, and then the next button is when it is hovered over but not clicked on. Now, for the next one, it will be what the quest icons look like. In this case, I have normal quest set as the plate, and then it'll cycle back to the gear, which is what the main quests look like. These are what the standard textures, simple textures are. So and you'll notice that they don't have any padding or slicing because they don't need to loop, they just need to exist. And again, they follow the same bounding structure and everything else. It's mostly fairly simple. Each is going to follow a similar layout. Now you just want to make sure when you're padding that the padding isn't equal to half or more of what the inside is. So let's say you have a 16 wide texture, you don't want the padding to be 8 or higher if you're slicing, because then it means the middle slices are 0 and that crashes the game. So be careful. And now for each of these normal quest icons, it'll automatically color them. 0 is always going to be unfinished, and then I believe it is 0 is locked, then unfinished, unclaimed, and finished, or maybe it's another order, but it doesn't really matter because they're all going to be the same texture anyway. And then this just changes the text color, and then make sure instead of here, you're just going to want a close square bracket at the end to match the open square bracket at the beginning. Now, in order to load your textures into the game, you want to make sure you press F3 and T. I'm not going to do that here because A, I already have my textures loaded, and B, it takes a few minutes because it's reloading all the game's textures, and you don't want to watch me wait through that. So once you load up your custom theme, hopefully it'll work. If it didn't work, check your pixel measurements, commas, and bracket brace pairs. Hopefully it works out, and if you have any questions, you can join Funaway Guy's Discord server linked in his Better Questing mod page on CurseForge, and you can ask it there, or you could leave a comment on this video. Hopefully this was concise enough, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you for watching.